Right. I'm off to deal with the fate of the planet. Be gentle with them.
Oh, you know me, Mark. Kid gloves, but made from real kids.
Week after week, I immerse myself in Daredevil Born Again, holding out hope that it would recapture the magic of its predecessor. Now that the season final has aired, I can finally share my verdict. First things first, while the original Daredevil series was often criticized for being painfully slow, its 13-hour movie approach worked surprisingly well in terms of plot development and character arcs. Not so much in the pacing department, but yeah, it worked for the plot. With Born Again, I truly wanted to love it. I give it a fair shot every single week. Unfortunately, the final product feels like a blend of great ideas, unevenly executed. The ingredients for something amazing are all there, which I love, Strong performances, solid moments that stand out, flashes of brilliance, but they never fully come together until the very end, in my opinion. It's hard not to attribute this disjointness to the extensive reshoots and creative shifts behind the scenes. In fact, that's the biggest issue this first season has. The show feels like it's constantly at war with itself. There are clearly two very different creative visions competing across the season, making some episodes feel stylistically and tonally incompatible with each other. And this can go from one episode to the next, Ironically, when a show does lean fully in either of those visions, it actually works. So overall, all the episodes are good, It's just how they puzzle together is bad in my opinion. And to its credit, the final does manage to reconcile those two styles in a satisfying way, even if the road to get there is bumpy. That's not to say Daredevil Born Again is a bad show. It's not. It's just mid in terms of quality, what you expect, which makes it all the more frustrating every week. Coming from a franchise with such high standards, this season never quite reaches the quality I expected, the quality of like Daredevil season 3, which is practically perfect in all areas. That said, I have nothing but praise for the acting. Charlie Cox once again delivers a grounded and compelling Matt Murdock, and the rest of the cast, from returning faces to newcomers, bring their A game. Even New York itself feels like a living, breathing character. And while I didn't particularly connect with the new side characters introduced around Matt, I can't fault the performances for that. It's more so the writing. It's a writing issue. Everyone showed up here. That's what I can say. And another kind of negative point I have to point out here is the editing. That's where the show starts to falter from very obvious CGI and most egregiously scenes that involve Ayala Zura and Vincent D'Onofrio, so Vanessa Fisk and Wilson Fisk, where they're never actually on the screen together until very late in the season. Their scenes prior to episode 7 feel very stitched together in post, and I can't even say that this was like a creative decision to show how much the pair has shifted apart. I think that really comes down to availability, and that both were not always available for scenes involving both characters. It's just something that unnerved me, distracted me even, and it makes the dynamic suffer initially. There are also jarring changes in color grading. It's not as bad as Titans, but it's there and it is obvious, and the pilot, so to speak. And I mean, the pilot was completely reshot, so yeah, and general visual effects I mentioned, especially in the early episodes that are more driven before the creative overhaul. All these technical hiccups took me out of the moment more than once. Without diving too far into spoiler territory, I also have to mention the underuse of Muse. After such a strong build-up each episode, the character ultimately feels wasted, which is a shame considering how compelling his entire entrance is, He's there for like 1.5 episodes and then gone, solved. That was a little bit too little for me. Perhaps Muse will appear again and the already promised season 2, but that doesn't necessarily change his odd placement here in this season. Still, there are some standout moments. Episode 5, for example, features a fantastic bank situation and bank heist and the whole shabazz. It's mostly disconnected from the main plot, sadly, but it does kind of capture the gritty charm that made the original Netflix series so beloved, and it is a great exercise for seeing Daredevil in action. As a fan of obscure comic book characters, I was generally thrilled to see White Tiger included and finally getting some mainstream attention. The way of his death is even handled very similar to how it's done in the comics. I would have loved to see more in the costume, but apparently the actor of White Tiger died during production. But they're clearly setting up his sister Angela to become the next White Tiger, so maybe we see White Tiger in the next season. Also, not forget the highlights like Bullseye's escape, the initial fight between Daredevil and Bullseye, the fight between Daredevil and Muse, and just how devilishly delightful the duo of Vanessa and Wilson Fisk are when they're together. Special mention goes also to the costume department for nailing the White Tiger costume and making it visually more interesting. Also, the Daredevil costume looks great when you can see it full front, which doesn't happen often, but it does generally look great. In the end, despite its inconsistencies, Daredevil Born Again has enough standout performances, memorable scenes, and fan service to make it worth the watch. I'll be lenient and give it an 8 out of 10, partly for the love I still hold for Daredevil as a character, and partially for the promise and potential that lies beneath the surface.
Don't forget to subscribe! Now get the fuck out of my driveway.